Good morning, welcome to the YouTube studio here at the Berlin Global Dialogue. I'm Jack Kelly from TLDR News, and I'm honoured to be joined by Charles Michel, President of the European Council.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so one of the major topics that's already come up in your discussion earlier, and one that our audience is particularly interested in, is the West's reaction and response to China. How would you characterise Europe's attitude towards China at the moment and how that's changing?
We have on the EU side a very clear vision about the relationship with China, and there are three very important elements for us. First point, we have very fundamental values and principles, democratic principles, and we'll always promote our values and principles in our relationship with the rest of the world, including with China. My second point is related to the importance for us to reduce our vulnerabilities and to make our relationships more balanced with China. And that's why it is important to engage and to defend our interests, and also to make sure that there are supply chains that are working well, which is very important. And over-dependencies are always risky, are always dangerous. That's why this is fair to make sure that we can rebalance our relationships. And my third point is related to the global challenges. This is very important to engage with the Chinese authorities to make sure that we can make progress in addressing climate change, in addressing the digital transformation, or in addressing global health, for instance. The COVID pandemic has shown how important it is to engage at the global level for addressing those common challenges.
Absolutely. And when we look at the attitude taken over in the US, there seems to be a slightly harder line approach than what some European countries are comfortable with. Do you think there'll be agreement within Europe around how the level of decoupling that should be aimed for? Or do you think that's an area where we see disagreement?
No, I feel it is very clear that we don't want decoupling. It would be a huge mistake. What we want is to reduce the risk. What we want is to diversify our supply chains. In some sectors, we are heavily dependent on China. And we are learning the lessons. You know that with Russia, we were heavily dependent on Russia for our fossil fuels. And we have seen the collateral negative effects for the European Union. And I think it's very important for us to learn the lessons. And with the United States, I think that we work very well together, because these are, and they are an important ally for us. We'll have in a few weeks, again, a very important bilateral summit. It will be a bilateral political moment with the United States. And if you see the G7 statement, for instance, this was the occasion to make very clear for those partners within the G7 how we see the world in the future and how we see the ways to address those questions of supply chains, of rebalancing the economic relationships.
EU enlargement is obviously a hot topic at the moment, specifically in relation to Ukraine, but also more generally when we're looking at the Balkans and other regions where enlargement is a conversation that's been going on for a while. A lot of those countries are beginning to think that those conversations are slowing down and that there's a slow on enlargement. What's your thought on kind of the role of the EU in those conversations and the future of the EU when it comes to new member states?
No, enlargement is a top priority in my opinion, and it's very clear that with the war launched by Russia against Ukraine, we can all understand how this is important to enlarge, to make sure that the EU in the future, with small member states, will be safer and will be more prosperous. And this should be our common goal. This is a difficult conversation, you're absolutely right, because there are homeworks on both sides. The candidate countries, on the one hand, they need to implement the reforms that are needed in order to join the EU acquis, in order to make sure that we have a common understanding of rule of law, independence of justice, freedom of the press, for instance. And this is very important for them to make more progress and to speed up the efforts that are needed. But on our side, on the EU side, we have also our homework.
Yes.
And it means that we need to prepare the future of the EU. And here I see three fundamental questions that we need to address. The first one is, what do we want to do together? When will be more member states, what will be the European common priorities? Point one. How do we pay for that? Financial topics are always extremely difficult and complex, not only within the European Union. And finally, the decision-making process. You know that there is a constant debate within the European Union, this balance between the unanimity, the qualified majority. We need to find ways to make sure that we are united, that we make sure that when we decide, we implement the decisions that we made together. And it's a difficult debate because there are different opinions about those questions. But this is not because this is difficult that we shouldn't address it. On the contrary, I feel that there is no time anymore to procrastinate. procrastinate. This is time to act. This is time to address those situations and to prepare a future for the next generations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really great speaking with you.
Thank you.